All right, so hello, I'm Sergio.
I'm Drew.
We are presenting on the foster care to prison pipeline. We're the two presenters for our group. Tia, Jessica, and Brady were the minds behind the research, and they're not really comfortable with speaking in front of the class, so he kind of stepped up.
We're it.
And yeah, so we're the presenters. So yeah, so starting off, we're starting off with the background, just kind of getting into some of the
Data.
data,
And,
just background overall.
Yeah,
of-
about the foster care system itself.
Yes. So starting off, former foster youth have a higher rate of criminal involvement in incarceration in adulthood compared to the general population. So according to the latest data from American Society for the Positive Care of Children, there are 437,500 children in America's foster care system who face a disproportionate risk of being incarcerated. So the problem is that since it's so severe, 1/4 of the foster care alumni will become involved with the criminal justice system within 2 years of leaving foster care. The foster care to prison pipeline primarily affects youth of color, LGBTQ communities, or identified youth, and young people with like mental illnesses, and they've all are more likely to be in foster care and thus even more likely to be pushed into the justice systems.
So continuing on with our research, we also found that youth in group homes are more than 2 times more likely to become involved in the justice system than youth placed with foster families. Moreover, frequent placement changes increase the likelihood of incarceration. This stems from kind of the feeling of not being wanted really by anybody. And then there's research that demonstrates that nearly half of the youth that have been removed from a home or were arrested as adults. And the population is much more likely to be arrested, convicted, and imprisoned in adulthood compared to the general population itself. One study shows that more than 90% of the youth in foster care with 5 or more moves will become involved in the juvenile justice system. There's also a different study that says by the age of 17, over half the youth in the foster care experience an arrest, a conviction, or an overnight stay in a correctional facility. In some way or form, they're involved with criminal activity and the police.
Many foster youths have the police call on them by their caregivers and face incarceration for small infractions. This is according to some advocates. Foster youth in government-run group homes are particularly at risk of having police call on them by staff, and it just kind of goes back to why they're in foster care in the first place. They're troubled kids who have always had issues either with parents or even mental illnesses. Children who are emancipated from the foster care system or age out are in additionally vulnerable population. These youths are discharged from the system because their age precludes them from benefits. This emancipated population is more likely to be involved in crime than youth who have spent any amount of time in care. And that's because, like previously mentioned, they age out. So once you age out of that 18 years old, there's really nowhere else you can go to like seek care. So you're pretty much on your own. Without a consistent, significant, and positive caregiver, children often develop attachment issues that can carry with them throughout their lives and lead to low self-esteem, which is a predictor of criminal involvement in young adulthood.
So from all that kind of general background, we came upon the problem statement of the foster care to prison pipeline is a huge problem because 80% of the prison population has spent at least some period of time in foster care. This is a major issue which affects society as a whole because these people who leave the foster care system when they turn 18, when they age out, they come into society without much of a support system, and then they turn to criminal activity in order to survive. This robberies to get money, a lot of youth and 18-year-olds, they get into the gang life or that sense of family. So that's what we ended up on our problem.
Isn't it you?
So from this, we stemmed what the need. The need is
The solution.
Well, our solution, but the need is that our foster youth represent one of the country's most seriously disconnected and at-risk populations. Pretty sure that we are leading the world in the amount of foster care youth. We obviously lead the world in the amount of people imprisoned in this society, just in general. So many of these youth have experienced severe trauma and neglect as children, and as a result, they are highly vulnerable to being homeless, unemployed, undereducated, and just overall life. They live in poverty. Some statistics behind this: nearly 40% of the foster youth will be homeless or couch surf at some point in their life. 20% of the foster youth will not have a high school diploma or GED, which makes it very difficult to get a job. Less than 5% of the foster youth will graduate from an actual 4-year accredited college. And over 70% of females, over 50% of males that are in that are in the foster care system will be parents at a very, very young age, compared to 41% and 28% of those who aren't in the foster care system. And then nearly 43% of the females and 74% of the males in the foster care system will have been incarcerated, compared to, if you're not in the foster care system, 6% for females and 23% for males. So as you can see, it's a pretty big factor there for your incarceration. More than over half the foster youth will be unemployed, compared to, anywhere from 2 to 10% of their peers that aren't in the foster care system. So once again, it just shows you that being in foster care itself, which is a huge disadvantage later on in your life.
Yeah, so part of the solution is to implement many programs, such as my First Place for Youth. First Place for Youth was founded in 1998, and it seeks to help foster youth build the skills they need to make a successful transition to self-sufficiency and a responsible adulthood. Through its flagship program, which is called My First Place, or MFP, and other supporting programs, First Place supports at-risk foster youth at a critical time in their lives when they need to learn to support themselves. They currently serve 6 California counties. Since its founding, First Place for Youth work has been driven by 2 goals, which is to provide results-driven direct service to young people who need our help, and to change public policies to improve the lives of as many transition-age foster youth as possible. So, as it is only in California, I think this is a good program many states can adopt, just because it helps build kids' character. You can educate them once they're out of the age when they're allowed to be in a foster, or when they're allowed to be in foster care.
So a little further in depth on that system, what they really target to serve is, they serve the 18 to 24-year-old kind of demographic that are on that are coming off child welfare or probation systems, coming out of the foster care system. So the typical foster youth entering the First Place program has been exposed to multiple traumatic events in their life, removed from his or her home when you're 10, 11, 12 years old. And the youth that is placed, they get placed in the foster care system, they age out. And this program really helps them try to get on their feet once they age out, when they really don't have a support system. So on average, our youth have kind of quote unquote grown up in the system, having been in the custody of the state for anywhere from 2 to 3 years up to 8, 9 years. The following statistics that I'm going to read to you will provide kind of the characteristics of the youth, of what they intake. So when they age out, about 61% of their participants are unemployed. 27% don't even have a high school diploma or a GED. 69% have no stable housing, and a little over 50% have been arrested. So what this program does, it really tries to help them get a good support system for them to help build a healthier and clean adult life.
So going back to My First Place, which is a flagship program for First Place for Youth. This program, the Youth Advocate meets with youth face-to-face at least once a week to support him or her in developing healthy living skills and removing barriers to education or employment. The support is tailored to the needs of the youth and can range from discussion about boundaries, healthy relationships, budgeting, and counseling. The Youth Advocate has a caseload of 1 to 12 to 15 applicants. The Education and Employment Specialist meets with the youth at least bi-weekly to support him or her in pursuing educational opportunities, including earning a GED or pursuing higher education, as well as in identifying and pursuing employment opportunities. We encourage linked learning opportunities and career and marketable certifications when possible. The Education and Employment Specialist has a caseload of 1 to 30 to 36 applicants. The Housing Specialist secures apartments and supports the youth in learning how to be a good tenant, often serving as the liaison between property owners and the youth as needed. The Housing Specialist conducts move-ins, move-outs, supports the youth with maintenance requests, and conducts routine housing inspections. The My First Place staff employ a youth-centered, needs-driven, trauma-enforced approach to serve youth and use numerous evidence-based practices like motivational interviewing and assessment. So, as you heard, My First Place ranges in several. How do I say it? They range in several programs where they can help the youth in different aspects of their lives. And I think when you have that program, when you have that access, it can motivate the individual to better themselves, to make better decisions, to want to get out of their situation that they're in.
So one of the big reasons why we think this program should be implemented much further than just 6 counties in California is kind of some of this data that shows how it is working, and I'll kind of go over that right here. So among the youth who remain in this program for at least 12 months, the data shows that 40% of the nation's former foster youth experienced homelessness by the age of 24. Those who were in My First Place, only 86% of them found a stable housing program out of it upon their exit. In addition, only 78% of foster youth earn a high school diploma by the age of 21. Once again, if you go into this My First Place program, 85% earn their high school diploma or GED. And from there that increases 92% of those upon their exit continue on to further education, whether that's an associate's degree, a 4-year degree, or just to a trade school. So as you can see, this program really helps these they're not really kids, but these young adults with a support system, and gives them the opportunities to help them further themselves in their lives. In addition, only 29% of California's foster youth are employed upon exiting their foster care, whereas compared to once you exit the My First Place program after a year, 91% are employed. So once again, you can kind of see how massive these advantages are. We have some people in the background trying to throw us off our game, so they're working though.
You said we could do this.
But anyways, unless Sergio has anything else, I think we kind of went over it all, and this is the point where we would kind of open it up for any questions or people want to discuss about this. Obviously, since we're on video, there's no discussion questions. So Other than that, if you're good, I'm good.
Yeah,
We're good. Thanks for watching, Sarah.
Yes.